Hi, Allie. Welcome to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to kind of get right into it. And for the listeners that might not be familiar, can you tell them a little bit more about your product, Oat Haus, why you created the product, and where that stemmed from?
Yes. So, hi everyone. I'm Allie. I am one of the co-founders of Oat Haus. We make a product called Granola Butter. Super weird idea, kind of quirky, I know, but it is the world's first oat-based spread. So think the texture of a nut butter, but it is actually made from oats. So it's totally nut-free, school-safe, all the things. And actually, the day that we're recording this, we just launched our cherry pie flavor online, which is sitting right beside me. I don't know if this is video recorded, but that's a really amazing. That was a collab flavor with Ambitious Kitchen, who's a content creator, recipe developer, and also investor in Oat Haus. So that was really fun. But yeah, came out of my eating disorder recovery. So started a little over 6 years ago now in my parents' garage, and had struggled with food for over a decade. I studied nutrition in college and was always kind of I never was hospitalized for any of my issues with food. And side note, I'm super open about my experience just because it's led me to where I am today. But I always just struggled. And food was always like very, stressful. It was always in the back of my head, or I would say more so the forefront of my mind. Honestly, it was like 99% of my thoughts were about food in a really toxic and, fear-based way. And so struggled for a long time, never knew that I had an eating disorder until kind of looking back on things and until now really realizing, wow, that was not healthy at all. And so really embarked on this journey of recovery, food freedom around 2016, 2017. I think, I didn't even know it was recovery, but I just knew I needed to make a change with my relationship with food. It was taking over my life in like a really negative way. So I was living in San Francisco at the time, working in tech, as one does in San Francisco. I went to Berkeley, so it was like the Berkeley to SF tech pipeline was very, very strong. And I just wasn't living life. Like I was in my early to mid 20s. I should have been living my best life in San Francisco, going out to dinner, getting drinks with girlfriends and everything. It felt like I had created this like mental prison for myself where I was terrified to eat out. I was scanning the ingredients of every product I was consuming, menus at restaurants. You get the idea. So, like getting stressed just telling you about it. But yeah, and so I think like I really was looking for, I didn't even care at that point how my body looked or what happened. I think I was really chasing just this ease and this relaxation around food that I didn't have for so long. And so that was really what motivated me and pushed me into recovery. And so that was, as I mentioned, yeah, kind of late 2016, early 2017. And a huge part of my recovery process was reintroducing my fear foods back into my diet. So I didn't eat peanut butter, almond butter, any of these nut butters that we see on the market. I was terrified of for years because they were really calorically dense and, they just, I don't know, food rules don't make sense a lot of times, but they were something I avoided. And so when I started to add them back in, I had a really hard time digesting them just because obviously my body had gone without them for so long. So in the meantime, as I'm kind of getting back to health, healing my body, healing my gut, I was working with a nutritionist at the time who recommended maybe you should try some of these nut-free spreads on the market. There's sunflower seed butter, there's soy nut butter. I don't have a nut allergy, so I never had to try them. And so once I did, I was really appalled by how underwhelming the taste was. And, just wasn't for me personally, not to talk down any competitor brands. That's not what I'm here to do. But for me, yeah, just wasn't scratching the itch. It wasn't doing it for me. So I just had this epiphany because Oatly was popping up everywhere. Everyone's putting oat milk in their coffee. And I'm like, okay, if you could create a milk out of oats, you can definitely create a spread out of oats. Why has no one done this? And I'm literally in my tiny San Francisco kitchen, like Googling on my phone, oat butter, oat-based spread, granola butter, and nothing is coming up. And I'm like, okay, we have a self-driving car. Well, I guess at that point we didn't. We have the iPhone. Like, why has no one thought of this? So that's where the initial idea came from. And, I've always been entrepreneurial, always had these ideas, but nothing really grabbed me like this did and kind of, swallowed me up. It wasn't like I was out searching for, how am I going to start a nut-free spread company? It was kind of like the business idea came to me and yeah, I didn't have any option but to just go with it. So yeah, started in, as I mentioned, 2017. We had moved back down to San Diego to my parents, where I'm from. Started working out of my parents' garage, cheap overhead, cheap rent, and kind of the rest is history. We've grown it, very in a lean startup kind of methodology, lean startup fashion from there. And yeah, we're now sold at Target, Whole Foods, Publix. We just launched. So it's been a crazy ride.
Congratulations. Well, I'd love to learn, since you came from a place where you didn't have balance, how have you been able to find balance as an entrepreneur, um, and as someone who cares about like how they feel in their body?
Mm, yeah, I definitely am someone that does not tend to operate baseline from a place of balance. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, and even our society, I feel like is kind of built like you open up Instagram, TikTok, and the algorithm just favors extremes, right? It's like, or
Yeah.
even you turn on the news. Like, I don't really watch the news anymore because it just stresses me out. Um, like I go to my parents' house and they just have it running in the background, and I'm like, how are you guys just cooking dinner like with this? It's
I
like
know.
man, beheaded. And I'm like, well, how? So I opt out of the news, but I guess social media isn't much better, and that's what I'm consuming all the time. But it's yeah, we live in this world of like black and white thinking, and I think our brains also too just it settles them. It's kind of the way we're organized and the way we operate is putting things in a box. Subscribing to certain tribes, right? So it's like vegan, gluten free, paleo, like all these different dietary tribes that I think a lot of people really feel assigned to, and I just think balance is something that is really hard for our brains to wrap our heads around because it's like, what is that? It's not tangible, right? And so, yeah, I don't think that I ever am completely, there's never this time where I'm like, I am completely balanced. Like, you probably, maybe you're hearing some stuff in the background because I just got a new puppy a couple days ago, which you were so kind to reschedule our interview. Because I flew to California to get him. And, like my life before him was, I would say, obviously much calmer, but like definitely closer to what this state of balance is. And now things are just like, it was like a bomb went off and everything is like today's his first day in the office. And, that's a whole new routine. So I think it's not really like arriving at this one place, which is something I had always thought of as like, okay, I need to find balance, need to find balance. But it's kind of just life is always going to, shuffle things up. I kind of imagine like a stingray like underwater and kind of the sand, like gets all murky and then the sand kind of settles. And it's just finding ways to, when shit does hit the fan, which it will, how do you how do you reprioritize things? How do you move things around? How do you figure out, problem solve? And I think that's honestly, like, not to get too philosophical, but that's what I found, especially running a business. Like, it's just like whack a mole. You're always solving problems. Someone quits, someone has an issue with this, like, something's wrong with the product. So I don't think there's ever like this one place where you have no problems. And when I do have those moments where things are too calm, it stresses me out because I'm like, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like what? It's too calm, So yeah, I would say all that to say, really, it's about yeah, just like taking each day by day, and you're never gonna, have things figured out. You're never gonna arrive at this place, but yeah, that's just my experience. If someone else has any answers for finding balance, would love to hear.
Well, I love something that you had posted on Instagram, a reminder that this is not a dress rehearsal,
Mhm.
that we need to start living now. We need to be in the present. Otherwise, we're wasting our potential. Can you expand on that? And how often do you have to remind yourself that this is not a dress rehearsal?
Oh, all the time. I mean, yeah, especially on days like, I guess today's not a good example because it was a launch day, which feels kind of, like a highlight reel. But I definitely would say, like yesterday, for example, pretty mundane Monday. I was working from home. Obviously, this new puppy feels like everything's exciting, everything's fun at the moment. But I don't know, anyone can think of like some random work day where you're like, all right, nothing real exciting happened. Kind of just plowed through my day, got home, made dinner, watched a show, went to bed. And I think we've all had so many of those days. And those days are actually what makes up the majority of our life, right? It's like the day we launched into Target, the day we announced Whole Foods or whatever, our rebrand, like those big pivotal moments going on Shark Tank, like that is such a small percentage of your life, of my life. And so I think there it can be easy to have those mundane days and just kind of not try and find the magic in them, or feel like, oh, I just need to get through that this day, and that's totally fine. But I think I need the reminder all the time because you feel like you have time and you feel like I'm turning 32 this year and it's like, okay, I think of my life like I'm going to live to 100 years old. And I'm just like, oh, I'm only in my 30s. Like I have so much time. And it's like, I don't know that. Like, knock on wood, hopefully I don't get hit by a bus tomorrow, but I totally could, you know, and I know that's dark, but it's just real. It's like we're all going to die. That's the reality of life. And we just don't know when it's happening. And so that can either stress you out and, you know, it is a little stressful to think about. And that's why some people maybe don't leave their homes, don't advocate for that. But you know, it also can motivate you. And I think when I was starting this business, it was so scary. Like I was working this cushy tech job, went to Berkeley, had a great salary. Like my parents were so confused when I came to them and told them, "Hey, I'm starting a spreadable granola company." They were like, "Wait, what?" But I just thought to myself, like, I would never look back when I'm laying on my deathbed again, like picturing myself at 100 years old, like praying that I'm going to live that long. But I would never look back. And even if everything with Oat Haus, like crumbles, you know, tomorrow, I would never regret it because I took that risk. I followed my dreams and you're never going to regret that. Like what I would regret is saying I didn't start that granola butter company because I was not confident in myself, too scared, too lazy, whatever. And then I go and watch someone else do it and become a smashing success and just being like, oh, like just that thought alone gives me goosebumps because I'm like, so many people do that. They wait for the perfect moment to start. You know, they wait till their product is perfect, which it never will be. We have so much to go and we're always iterating, always changing things. So I think if you're always just waiting for this perfect moment, like it's never going to come and someone else is going to do it sooner than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that in mind, how do you like approach having more playtime and
Ooh,
making life like more interesting and fun and adding and like focusing, really as an adult on creating hobbies?
yes, yeah. No play. And also I was trying to move my camera because I usually don't record at this time and I realizing I'm like right in the sun. So hopefully it's not too bad for your video. I'll move over here. Um, yeah, oh my gosh, play. It's so funny because when you're a kid, your parents build play into your daily routine. And I'm even thinking about it now, like I don't have kids yet, but you know, this puppy, it's like I'm like, okay, I need to, as soon as he wakes up, I need to play with him, get some energy out, and then same thing, like a few times a day, right? Because otherwise they're just gonna chew everything up. So it's the same way when you're a kid. And then I think as you get older, you just forget that. And obviously other things take precedent, like your job and taxes and just laundry and like adulting things. And suddenly it's, you know, like at the end of the year and you're just, what did I do that was fun this year? Like, what did I do for myself? And I think a lot of people resort to drinking alcohol, going out, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like I do love a fun little cocktail here and there, but I think play is so much more than that. And I think alcohol is just it's an easy outlet and allows a lot of us to kind of just, you know, feel this false sense of relaxation and kind of turn our minds off for a while. But I think there's so many things that we forget about that we loved doing when we were kids. So I just got some rollerblades, roller skates. I guess they're rollerblades. I don't know, a couple months ago, and I've been having so much fun. And yeah, definitely scary as you get older because when you fall, it's like not as easy to get back up or recover. But it's just, I don't know. I think when you're an adult, you don't prioritize play because our society is obviously very capitalistic, and that's not something that's encouraged and feels kind of like childish because it is, and that's what we need. So that's something I definitely do rollerblading, just dancing in my room, you know, like noise canceling headphones. Definitely don't look in the mirror. It will cause you to not want to do it again. You know, close your blinds, like whatever makes you feel comfortable so that no one's looking. It's just you. Maybe you want to be home alone. That's totally fine. But just like move your body. You don't have to look cool. Like do things that just make you feel good and don't worry about what it looks like or what the external world thinks of you. I think those are things to me that really like that's what fills me up. That's what nourishes my soul. I'm a huge like EDM. I love electronic music. So luckily my fiance and I, we really bond over that. So, you know, we go to music festivals and that's kind of our escape because when you're at a music festival, it's almost like this alternate reality where people are dressing up, you know, it's kind of that childlike sense. And I know there's a lot of drugs involved with that too, but you don't need to partake. I still feel like the atmosphere is really conducive to feeling like a kid again. So wherever you find those little moments, because if you don't make the time for it, no one else will.
Mhm.
Our parents aren't, most of us aren't there anymore to kind of make sure that we're having fun. So we have to do that for ourselves.
Well, tell me a little bit about what's lighting you up right now. You mentioned that you are starting couples therapy, and tell me some other things that are you're loving right now and why.
Yeah. Ooh, what is lighting me up right now? Well, yeah, aside from my new puppy Noodle, he's definitely helping me tap into my childlike play. And I'm sure for anyone listening that has kids, I can't even imagine that's even on steroids. I'm sure it just helps you kind of become a kid again. Yeah, couples therapy, something we mentioned before we started recording, has been great. So Eric, my partner, and I, we've been together. We're also co-founders. So we've been together for almost, I think, a little over 10 years now. And, when you've been with someone that long, you have these rhythms, you have these routines. You feel like, oh, our relationship's rock solid. We've been together for 10 years. We have a business together. We have, dogs, a house together. But I think what's been really cool about couples therapy is with certain arguments and certain miscommunications, at least for us, it was cyclical and it was like the same issues over and over. It was like, oh, like we're not communicating. And it kind of felt like we were speaking different languages. So, therapy, I know a lot of people think of it as like, when you're in crisis mode and it's like when your relationship's falling apart, but it actually has been super helpful for us when our foundation's really great. Like we've been together for 10 years, really fight very rarely. Run a successful business, but it gives us these tools that they just don't teach you in school. They don't teach you growing up. And so that's been really cool. And the reason we actually started going was because we were supposed to get married this September, so this summer in Spain, and kind of it's a long story, but our venue ended up canceling on us. So we pushed our wedding like another year. So we kind of had all this like free time all of a sudden and all this energy that would have been spent towards planning a wedding. And we're like, well, our relationship's really the most important part of this whole thing. So why don't we kind of
Yeah.
invest that year and that time on working on us? So that's kind of where that came from. So that's what I'm really into right now. I think
Yeah.
anyone, even if you're in like a shorter term relationship, or if you've been with someone for a long time, maybe you're married, doing great. Like that's something that I think has really been helpful.
Yeah, what a blessing to have the date change so you guys
Yeah,
have this extra time together. That's really,
exactly.
really neat and, a great way to look at it. Uh, I know you love to cook. What are some of the things that you're loving to cook for the summer season?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I have been really into pasta salad. I know that's like so I don't know. It's just pretty cliche, I guess, but it's just something that, I would always have going to like summer potlucks or get-togethers growing up. And then just somehow found myself on pasta salad TikTok. And it's a whole niche side of TikTok I didn't even know existed. But there are so many creative pasta salad recipes out there, like,
Yeah.
with using prosciutto and burrata and just like very, I don't know, there's so many directions you can go. And I think what I love about it personally is I work a lot and I, do work from home most days, but I'm sure anyone else listening who works from home can relate. It's like half the time I just end up scrambling a couple eggs or like eating cottage cheese out of the container because I'm like, I feel like when you work from home, you actually end up working more weirdly. It's like you don't take the time to, carve out a good hour lunch break that maybe you would if you're in the office. And so what is nice is like with meal prep, the pasta salad is so great. I usually use Bonza pasta or like
Hmm.
some kind of, pasta that has some like fiber and protein in it. And then I'll do like either grilled chicken or salami or like some other animal protein that has that extra, satiety. And then it has veggies in there. It just feels like it has everything in one. And it's like it lasts the whole week. I'm just someone who I kind of have PTSD from eating raw salads from when I struggled with food because I just like force fed myself to eat so many vegetables when
Hmm.
I was, struggling with food. And so now I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm five again, where like I was making chicken nuggets the other night and I'm like, Allie, you really need to eat a vegetable. Like, this is not very healthy. Like, I need some more fiber. And so this is like a fun way to kind of sneak it in, which is embarrassing to admit that I need to sneak in vegetables at 32, but here we are, self awareness.
What do you think allowed you to have that food freedom around pasta again, which is something that still a lot of people or a
Yeah.
lot of women struggle with? And
Mm.
now it's like something that brings you so much joy and you cook with it.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I know it's funny. It's like had you asked me when I was really struggling, yeah, I'd mentioned, the nut butters I was terrified of, but really more than anything was carbs. So
Mhm.
like I would go I was probably keto looking back on it without even like putting a label on it or realizing, because I just was terrified of carbs. And couldn't even tell you where that came from. Probably, social media at some point. And so, yeah, just even looking back, I think sometimes when you're so far in recovery, like even just you reflecting that back on me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is really crazy. It's like you don't realize how far you've come. And I think what you mentioned about that pleasure, like, bringing joy, I think that is really my why. And that is a huge part of our mission at Oat Haus. It's like, yes, our product is allergen free. Yes, it's like gluten free, all these things. But I never love to lead with that, because then it kind of puts your product it puts this food in like a different part of your brain. At least for me, it's like if I'm eating something and I'm like, okay, I'm eating this because it's healthy for me, that's just a totally different experience than, oh, I'm eating this because it makes me so happy. It brings me so much pleasure, so much joy. It makes my body feel good. Like it's just a different energy, a different vibration. And not to get too woo woo, but yeah, I think, with pasta, it's like, sure, maybe regular pasta, doesn't have much nutritional value, and that's great. That's okay. Because I think there's just this whole level of soul nourishment that really needs to happen. And when
Yes.
I was struggling with food, I was avoiding carbs, that's when I was binging a lot. And what I actually really realized was the reason I was binging so much wasn't because I was physically hungry. Like I was eating adequately, I would say, amount of food, but I was so strict and rigid with what I was allowing myself to eat. There was no pleasure, there was no joy in what I was
Mhm.
eating. And so at the end of the day, it's like you really can only, white knuckle it for so long. And so then there'd be a night where, maybe I'm hormonal or I'm hangry and tired and like my willpower is just worn down. And then I would like let myself have one little cookie, and then I'd be like, oh my God, I blew it. I'm going to eat the whole sleeve of cookies and then start like get back on the wagon the next
Yeah.
day. And I know so many people listening can relate because it's just very common. And
Yeah.
I think especially as women. And so once I started, that's why I think like play and fun is so important. It's not just because it feels good, but it really is important, like with everything. And it just reverberates out to all your different relationships, especially with food. And so it's like once I started incorporating more pleasure, more fun into my day, I didn't rely on food to provide all of that for me. And it's
Yeah.
totally still can, right? It's like I still love food. I have a food company, but it doesn't nourish everything. And I think I also realized that it was not serving me either, right? It's like when you're putting all that pressure on your meal to bring you like all of the joy and pleasure and
Mhm.
happiness for your whole day, like that's a lot of pressure. And like one meal, even if you're eating at a Michelin star restaurant, like it probably can't do that. And then once the meal's over, then what, Like then you're
Yeah.
just going to be so shattered. And that's why I think I was just constantly thinking about food, because as soon as I finished one meal, I'd be, just like ruminating about the next one. So, anyways,
Mhm.
there's a lot there, but um, I think, yeah, bottom line is just the most amount of joy and pleasure and play you can find in multiple aspects and dimensions of your life, and not just relying on food. That will, at least that's what helped me.
I find it so interesting that when you sit down and have a meal with another person, I always find I eat less because
Yes.
I have connection and joy and fun through connecting with the other person, that I will always eat less food. And I find the appetite fascinating, how it changes when we can fill our hearts up or ourselves up with more joy.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I totally agree. Or when you're on vacation, like I know a lot of people who talk about,
Yes.
they go to Europe and they come back and they feel lighter. And it's like, maybe you're slowing down, maybe you're being intentional and just, yeah, I totally agree. And have the same exact experience. Like there's so many times where I'm home, even to this day, it's like no one's perfect. Like last night, I'm kind of just like watching, I've been on like a Love Island kick because it's just mindless. And, I'm eating these little like, they're called Bamba. They're like the peanut butter puffs. I get them at Trader Joe's. And again, it's like there's no nutritional value, but it's like soul nourishing. But I'm like sitting there watching Love Island and I'm realizing like I'm not even, I was kind of just like hand to mouth out of the bag, eating these puffs. And I was like, I am not even realizing that I'm eating these. Not that it was like a bad thing. I didn't have any shame or guilt around it, but it was, I think like the mindfulness too around food is really huge because, there's like so many times if I'm working from home and I'm just like shoveling while I'm like typing an email and then my lunch is gone and I'm like, what did I even just eat? Like, what did it taste like? Like, you don't even
I
taste it
know.
sometimes. So I think that's another thing that I'm constantly trying to work on because I'm just such a fast eater and always so busy. And so it is true. Like when you put away the distractions, say you're on vacation or with a girlfriend at dinner, I do like I eat so much slower. I really enjoy like I feel nourished soul wise from the food. Even if it was maybe, the same amount as I normally eat or less.
Would love to know, since you've been in a relationship for 10 years, how you guys manage dinner time.
Mm,
Because I think a lot of couples aren't sure, should someone always be in charge of cooking dinner? Should we split dinner? Should we
yeah.
just do our own thing and have one night a week where we eat together? How have you guys approached mealtime since you also work together?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my answer, which is probably, it's very realistic and it's not probably what like a relationship expert would say. But Eric and I very rarely eat dinner together, at least during the week. And that's just honest. It's just realistically, I get home at a different time than he does. So he's our COO. So he runs like our entire facility. So like we self-manufacture all of our products. We have close to 50,000 square feet on the other side of this wall. And, we have close to 30 employees that he manages production. So like he's just here a lot more where I'm maybe working
Yeah.
from home. And so he'll get home at, sometimes like 9 p.m. And I'm not waiting until 9 p.m. to eat dinner. Like I'm hungry, sorry, and it's like I know a lot of people who dinner time is like their time to connect and with their partner and hear about their day. But him and I are kind of talking all day and like we run a business together. And so I don't feel that we're missing out necessarily on like, oh, how was your day? Good. How was your day? Because it's like we've kind of been chatting all day. Obviously, not like a deep connection all day, but I still kind of know like what he was up to that day. But one thing that is really important to us is we usually do go out to dinner at least like once a weekend. So, like a date night, I guess. And we just moved to Cleveland in September. So we're still somewhat new to this city. And so it's been fun for us just like exploring new restaurants and trying new things. So that's important to us. But yeah, like realistically, we don't eat dinner most nights because our schedules are just so different and we try to find time on the weekends, but it's just not something. I make my own dinner, he makes his own dinner, and
Mhm.
I'd love for it to be us to eating together more, but yeah, at this point in time, it's just not the way it is.
Well, as a personal chef, I see a lot of things, and also, we have our own experiences that we had with our parents growing up. And, but I always love asking because I've seen so many different things work so well for couples. So I always like finding out, how that, how that, how that works out in a household, especially where they work together. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, growing up, my mom was the breadwinner and she started her own dental practice. And she was kind of, like she would get home totally different time of day. So it's funny how, yeah, maybe history repeats itself a little because my dad was a school teacher. So he was home with us like, 3 p.m. onwards.
Oh,
And
wow.
I never remember having like a sit down. I mean, once in a while we would have like a sit down family dinner, but we weren't like those families that are like, okay, let's all hold hands and like pray together and like, every single night. So yeah, maybe also that's another kind of reason why to me it's just not as much of a priority. But I'm sure like if it was, you know, we could find time. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is interesting.
Well, and it'll evolve too when you have kids.
Right.
And that's the thing I've also noticed and talked to my clients about is it evolves at different times in their life and their marriage and relationships.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that I feel like people never really have. And I'm always so curious about it, obviously, because I live and breathe in the food space.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Where do you turn to kind of keep learning? So, where do you turn to keep learning about food, health, wellness, spirituality, anything at all just to continue to kind of grow and expand as a person?
I love that question. I think, what's really nice about we've moved around quite a bit. So I grew up in San Diego, went to school in the Bay Area, and then the last 3 years we were in Philly for a facility there, and then now we're in Cleveland. And I just feel like I've accumulated these friends, like, kind of cherry picked these friends along the way from all different walks of life. So, like, obviously, my Berkeley friends are way different than, people I met in Philly, just like different backgrounds and interests and all of that. And so I think I'm really grateful that I have found and accumulated this eclectic group of friends. And I try not to surround myself with people that are cookie cutter exactly the same. Like,
Mhm.
what I look for in a friend, because I think especially as you get older, look, you're so busy. It's hard to maintain those friendships, like especially when you
Mhm.
have kids. I can't even imagine. Um, like even for me now, I'm like, how do parents have kids or have friends? And what I really look for in a friend, okay, is this person worth my time? Like, I know this seems kind of transactional. This is not the way that I like literally think about it, but like
Mhm.
subconsciously when you're meeting someone for the first time, like what really draws me to someone and makes me want to spend more time with them is, are they expansive for me? Like, do they
Yeah.
teach me something new? Are they up to big things? Like, do they inspire me? And I have definitely, outgrown a lot of people in my life. And I think a lot of us, we kind of evolve past certain friends, but we hang on to them because we're like, oh, they're my childhood friends. I just, I don't know. I think the people in your life, obviously you want to keep certain people because you have history and, it's nice to reminisce on certain things. But I don't know. I just think I try my best to surround myself with people that light me up
Mhm.
and, they give me energy, because I think we all know that difference where it's like we spend time with someone and we kind of leave feeling like, oh, I feel a little drained. Like, why did that experience leave me feel less energy than when I came? So that's kind of always like the barometer I go off of. Um, but that is where I learn the most, like from the people that I really cultivate and kind of surround myself with. And then aside from that, I like TikTok. I know it gets a lot of shit and it does suck a lot of my time, but it does teach me a lot of things, because I think Instagram for me has felt it's very curated, and you're kind of following the same people, where it's like I love with TikTok you're being shown all different walks of life, all different opinions, and I don't agree with everything that I see, but I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so that podcast's definitely not the news. Like, again, I mentioned I can't like, I can't watch the news. It stresses me out.
It's all right. I don't have a TV in my house, so I really can't turn it on anyways.
Yeah,
So, it's
perfect.
not like I'm going to stream that on my laptop. It
Yeah,
just doesn't make me feel good. I got rid of my TV and cable back in 2014 just
yeah.
because every time I turned it on, it didn't make me feel good. So I thought, well, let me just go without it for a little bit and see what happens.
Mm,
And I just have never had the desire. I will someday. I feel like someday I'll have a TV again. It'll be nice to have someone to watch a movie with and cuddle on the couch. But
yeah.
as of right now, I don't have a need for it.
I feel like you're not missing out. Like, even I mentioned
Yep.
like Love Island. Some of those like trashy kind of mindless TV shows. It's like I turn them on and it's fun. Yeah, I guess it's fun to watch with like when my mom was visiting, or like a girlfriend. But like what you get out of that is like bonding with the other person you're watching it
Yeah.
with. Like when
Yeah.
I was home all alone all weekend because Eric was at a food show. Were you at Fancy Foods in New
I
York?
wasn't, but I wish I was.
Okay, yeah, so that was the show he was at. But yeah, I was home alone, so I'm like, all right, got this new puppy, can't really leave the house. I guess I'm gonna watch like a lot of reality TV. And yeah, it's like, it's entertaining, but you're right. Like you don't feel this like, it kind of is draining, and you feel a little like, ugh, why did I just rot for 3 hours on the couch watching this?
But it is so much more fun when you're watching it with someone. So when you're watching a show,
Yeah,
Chef's Table, a reality, something that teaches you, to have another person there to banter
yeah.
with, it does feel like an experience with them instead
Mm-hmm.
of um, something that's it doesn't feel like a guilty pleasure.
Exactly.
Which guilty pleasures are fine.
Yeah.
There is just a different dynamic when you can enjoy it with other people.
For sure, yeah. I even remember in college, like all my girlfriends, we would watch The Bachelor, and we'd have like
Yeah.
The Bachelor Monday nights because all
Yeah.
of us were like fresh to the workforce, like we were all working our little 9 to 5s, and it was such a nice ritual. And then yeah, it was like we would all talk about it after, and that to me
Mhm.
felt like really soul nourishing. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
it's like
whole
the
sorority house, we would all gather and watch Sex and the City together.
oh
It would be like, 40 girls in the room, like everyone that lived in the house and a few others. And it was like those moments were just so much fun.
yeah.
Obviously there's like a time and a place for it in your life, but you know, I guess we can still make them happen as an adult, depending on like what the show is, or
Yeah.
what the experience that you want to have. So like for instance, another popular show that's going to be on this summer is The Bear. And so I have clients that want to do like a dinner party all around the bear.
Oh, that's
Once the new
cool.
season comes back on, like let's just do a bunch of food that's like what they were showing in the first season. And then we can all, watch a new episode together. And like, I love that stuff.
That's
Like,
so cute. Yeah.
just playful ways to like create a theme and get together.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's it's like everything is just an excuse to hang out with your friends, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's all about just creating joy and experiences to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Um, but can you leave our listeners with one healthy tip that they could consider adding into their life?
Yes. I mean, I'm sure you can probably guess from this conversation. For me, healthy is not salads. And it's actually, yeah, just finding what brings you pleasure. And I think pleasure, like, it almost feels like a dirty word in our society, or like, at least for me, I always think of like, okay, pleasure, but it doesn't always have to be sexual, right? And I think,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even, you don't have to be in a relationship. It doesn't have to be from someone else. Like, I think things you do can bring you pleasure. So, like for me, something that is non-sexual, doesn't involve anyone else, that brings me pleasure, like a perfect Saturday morning for me. This is so basic, like basic white bitch, I admit it, but it's like wake up, like go to a workout class or go to Pilates or go for a nice hot girl walk, and then get my fancy little $7 latte and just like have no plans. If I was in San Diego, that's where I'm from, I would like walk on the beach, go to the farmer's market, just things that there's no reason you're doing them. It's not to check something off a list. It's not to be productive. It's literally just to feel good. Like I think
Yeah.
I have I have been searching and realized that as I've grown this business, because the more, and I will tell you, like even with this entrepreneur of the year thing, it feels good when you win an award. It feels good when you know, hit a certain sales revenue goal, whatever, get into target. But it's like it's so fleeting and it's not fulfilling the long term. Like,
Mhm.
and it's weird because the more goals and kind of things I've checked off, like bucket list things, actually not the worse I feel, but it feels just kind of like a letdown. Like when we were on Shark Tank, it's like everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool you were on Shark Tank." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it didn't feel the way that I thought it would feel, you know?" And I think when I started this business, I was always kind of this end goal. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I want to sell my business. That is like get acquired, IPO, whatever, sell your business. That's like the pie in the sky end goal that everyone thinks is like, that's going to make you so happy. And as we've kind of like stepped towards that goal, we obviously have a long way to go. But it's like, as we hit these little mini goals, I'm like, I don't think that's going to make me happy when that actually
Mhm.
happens. And it's kind of this weird juxtaposition of working towards this end goal, but not relying on it so heavily to, bring you all this fulfillment and satisfaction. And I think what I've really learned along the way, and maybe this is a tip, even obviously if you don't have your own business, is just that pleasure piece and like that finding the magic in the mundane, in the everyday, instead of kind of like putting all of your eggs and all of your happiness on these highlight reel moments.
Well, where can our listeners connect with you and follow you and continue to hear your words of wisdom and learn more about Oat House?
Oh, yeah. No, thanks so much for listening. Definitely don't feel wise. I feel like I'm still figuring everything out as I go. But yeah, you can connect with me. So, me personally is just my name. So, Allie Bonar, Bonar. And then our company is Oat Haus, oat.house on Instagram. I think we're Granola Butter on TikTok. I don't know why we did that. Probably should have kept it consistent across the board. And yeah, you can find our products at, I think I mentioned earlier, Target, Whole Foods, Publix, Amazon, pretty much everywhere. You can find like spreads and peanut butter. So thank you so much for having me. This was a really
Yeah.
nice combo. I haven't done a podcast in a while.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to connect.